When my uncle died in 1963, about 80% of Americans said they trusted their government. Today, 22% trust in the government and 22% trust the press, the lowest level ever. The media is at the lowest ever because we know the media lies to us. The problem is that when the sources of information that we're always used to and that we need to rely on in a democracy, when they start lying to us, Americans look for other sources for the truth. And when corporate captive media and corporate captive government seize other sources of truth, they brand it misinformation because it threatens their paradigm. So they have to either censor voices or they have to lie about what's true and what's not true. And that amplifies the polarization. It amplifies the hatred, the fear, the insecurity. If we give a government license to silence its critics, it now has license for any atrocity. The pandemic was the most recent example. As soon as they knew they could censor us, they then went after the other part of the First Amendment, freedom of worship. They closed every church in this country without any scientific citation for a year, without any notice and comment rulemaking. Democracy was simply abolished. They then went after freedom of assembly. They told us we had to social distance. They went after our property rights, the Fifth Amendment. They closed 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation. They got rid of Seventh Amendment jury trials. They said no matter how egregious the injury you cause, no matter how negligent you are, no matter how reckless, you cannot be sued. And here's what the Seventh Amendment says. It says, no American shall be deprived the right of a trial before a jury of his peers in case or controversies exceeding $25. There's no pandemic exception. None. And by the way, the framers knew all about pandemics, as there were 2 epidemics during the Revolutionary War. They knew all about it, but they didn't put a pandemic exception in the Constitution. I grew up at a time that economists call the Great Prosperity. That's when the American middle class, between 1945 and 1975, grew to be the biggest economic engine on the face of the globe. We made everything and everybody look to us not only for goods, but for moral leadership. We became the most powerful country in the world, unrivaled. And it was because we had a stable democracy with institutions that people trusted. You cannot have democracy in a society where there are high concentrations of wealth and widespread poverty. You need a middle class or you don't get democracy. And we had that. But since the early 1980s, there's been a systematic attack on our middle class. And the pinnacle was the lockdown. The lockdown was the biggest shift in wealth in human history. The cost of lockdown to the United States was $16 trillion. $16 trillion for nothing. We shifted $4 trillion from the middle class in this country to the super rich. We created 500 new billionaires. At some point, even the media is going to have to stop saying this was a success story. The health issues were dwarfed by the economic cataclysm that befell our country's middle class. I'm watching the country being stolen. And I want to say one final thing. I'm going to put my cards on the table. I am not an ideal presidential candidate for normal times. In normal circumstances, I would not run for the presidency. But these are not normal circumstances. And when I'm president, we're going to take back this country. We're going to start investing in the United States middle class and make America an exemplary democracy.
Hey everybody, hit the follow button to keep up with all the latest crunchies.